The Garden of Eden. We all know the story, right? A lost paradise, a perfect beginning for humanity. But what if it's way more than just a myth? For thousands of years, people have been searching for a real, physical Eden, absolutely convinced it was a real place here on Earth. Today, we are diving deep into two incredible, and I mean wildly different, theories that try to pin down exactly where, and maybe more importantly, what, Eden really was. So here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll kick things off with this universal quest for paradise that's been driving explorers crazy for centuries. Then we'll unpack two competing theories. The first one puts Eden right in the heart of ancient Mesopotamia. The second, well, it proposes a radical alternative at Giza. And finally, we're going to try and figure out what these stories really tell us about myth, memory, and what it all means.
All right, so to start, let's just get a handle on how powerful this idea really is. You see, the hunt for Eden isn't just some religious curiosity. No, it's this deep-seated human drive, this powerful belief in a lost golden age that has, and I mean this literally, shaped the course of our history. And this wasn't just some ancient obsession either. Get this, in 1498, Christopher Columbus himself, when he reached the Orinoco River in South America, was totally convinced he had found the rivers flowing out of the earthly paradise. That just shows you the incredible power of this myth. It could influence even the most practical, world-changing explorers.
So, that brings us to our first major theory, which takes a much more, let's say, archaeological approach. It suggests that if you really want to find Eden, you shouldn't be looking at modern maps. No, you've got to dig into the ancient history of Mesopotamia, deciphering clues from old, dried-up riverbeds and ancient clay tablets etched with the world's very first writing. And here is the first key piece of evidence. So go back to around 6000 BC. The sea levels were way lower than they are today. That whole area that's now the northern part of the Persian Gulf, it was a beautiful, fertile valley, and it was irrigated by four major rivers: the Tigris, the Euphrates, and two others that have long since dried up. Now, that geography is an almost perfect match for the biblical description of Eden. And then there's this crucial linguistic link. The Sumerians, who were the first known civilization in that region, they had a word, Eden, and it meant fertile plain. This is widely believed to be the root of the Hebrew word we know as Eden. What's more, their earliest city, a place called Eridu, was considered the sacred primordial place. The time and the place, they fit perfect. Okay, but the parallels get even stronger when you start looking at their stories. There's this much older Akkadian legend about a sage from Eridu named Adapa. And his story is it's shockingly similar to Adam's. Adapa was a baker. Adam was told he'd eat bread by the sweat of his face. Adapa was tricked into refusing the food of eternal life, while Adam was kicked out so he couldn't get to the tree of life. I mean, could these just be two different versions of the same core story? It's hard to ignore. And the overlap becomes, well, pretty much undeniable when you compare the list of patriarchs from Genesis with the pre-flood Sumerian king lists. Just look at these parallels. Adam and Alalim, the first man or king. Enoch and Enman-Darana. And Noah, the hero of the flood, has a direct counterpart in Ziusudra. This isn't a coincidence, folks. This strongly suggests a shared historical memory that was passed down through different cultures over time. So what does this all add up to? Well, the Mesopotamian theory basically concludes that Eden was a real, physical place at the head of the Persian Gulf. And the story of being expelled from paradise, it isn't just some allegory, it's a collective condensed memory of a real-world catastrophe, a massive flood called the Flandrian Transgression that happened around 4000 BC and just wiped this whole fertile plain right off the map. All right, now for our second theory, I'm going to need you to set aside everything we've just discussed. The maps, the linguistics, the archaeology, and just consider a much, much more radical idea. What if Eden wasn't a geographical location at all, but a piece of lost technology? This is the big question that sits right at the heart of this second theory. It's proposing that when these ancient texts are describing a life-giving paradise, they aren't using metaphors for a fertile valley. No, they might be using the only language they had to describe a kind of planetary climate machine that once made the deserts bloom. The starting point for this whole idea is this startling mathematical anomaly. Dozens of the world's most mysterious ancient sites, we're talking Giza, Machu Picchu, the Nazca Lines, even ancient Ur from our first theory, they all lie on a single perfectly straight line that circles the entire globe. The odds of this happening by chance are, well, they're astronomical. So what on earth could possibly connect them?
This theory suggests that this alignment marks the path of what the ancient Greeks called the Oceanus, or the Sky River, a worldwide atmospheric river. But here's the twist. This wasn't natural. The idea is that it was an artificially generated current, and it was powered by the Great Pyramid of Giza. The pyramid, in this theory, acted as a massive engine, creating an ionic airflow to distribute moisture and bring rain to arid lands all along its path.
Now, to understand how this might have even worked, we need to look at another universal symbol, the tree of life. I mean, it appears in countless cultures, right? It's always shown as this central pillar reaching for the sky. This theory asks a simple question. What if this wasn't a symbol for a biological tree, but a literal depiction of something people actually saw?
And this is the theory's most stunning claim. Scientific simulations suggest that if the Great Pyramid were to generate a massive energy discharge, it would create a visible, tree-like plasma field stretching miles up into the sky. And here's the little detail that connects it all back. The branches of this energy field, they'd be curved, almost like human ribs. Okay, now remember how we said the Hebrew word for Adam comes from Adamah, which means earth or clay? This theory proposes a seriously radical reinterpretation. What if the original Adam wasn't a man at all, but the Great Pyramid itself, a massive structure built from the earth, from Adamah? So let's put this all together and see how this reframes the story. In this reading, the entire Genesis narrative becomes an allegory for this technology. Adam is the pyramid, made of earth. Eve, whose name actually means life, is created from Adam's ribs, which would be the life-giving rain generated by that sky river, a river that was sourced from that rib-like energy field. And the fall? That was the day the machine broke down, plunging the world into a massive climate catastrophe.
Okay, wow. We have just explored two completely different theories. One is grounded in archaeology, the other in physics, and a kind of symbolic reinterpretation. So what does it mean? What does it mean that two such compelling, yet totally contradictory narratives can be pulled from the exact same ancient texts? Let's just put them side by side for a second. The Mesopotamian theory argues that Eden was a real place, and the myth is a preserved memory of a great flood that destroyed it. The Giza theory argues that Eden was a global technology, and the myth is a preserved memory of its catastrophic failure. See? Both are powerful stories of a paradise that was lost. And honestly, this is the most important takeaway. Regardless of which theory you find more plausible, they both point to the same profound conclusion. Our most ancient myths are not just campfire stories. They are incredibly complex containers for collective memory, encoding real, world-altering events in allegorical language. Whether it was a flood or technological collapse, the theme is exactly the same. We remember a time of balance and harmony, and we remember losing. So we end where we began, with the search itself. The fact that we are still telling these stories, still debating them, and still, in our own way, searching for Eden, it reveals something fundamental about us. Maybe our obsession with a paradise lost is really just an expression of our deepest hope for a paradise regained.